hey guys! I didn't see you there. My name is Zeppy. I'm a video game avatar, and today, my girls at Pretty Girl News are going to explain why games may be a problem. Let's go see.
Thanks, Zeppy. Speaking of games, we all love and adore games, right? Some of us even love to indulge in the more intensive and violent games, such as Grand Theft Auto and Dead Trigger. As a matter of fact, most children and young teens have fallen into the loop of following up on these types of games as well. But what if I told you that in recent studies, these violent video games could have a direct correlation with youth violence and behavior? According to researchers Whitney DeCamp and Christopher Ferguson, there are a plethora of factors that could affect the minds of adolescents outside of video games alone. In addition, further research was conducted in a Delaware school survey, which obtained findings that go hand in hand with Whitney and Christopher's findings. Upon analyzing the data, it could be illustrated that students indeed displayed more positive than negative attributes. Let's go from more insight from the professionals. Take it away, Michael.
My name is Rachel Fuller. I'm a mental health therapist at Hibiscus Children's Center, which is a group home for teenagers in foster care.
Do you feel video games have a direct correlation to the violence displayed in youth?
Yes.
Do you think this is a causation or a correlation?
I think at least partial causation, because I think that video games cause kids to not realize like the true consequences. Because in a video game you just come back to life and there's no true consequences, so then they do more impulsive things thinking there's not going to be consequences, and then there are and they get surprised.
Right.
So I think maybe, not necessarily just the violent part of video games, but just the, it not being reality, and so the consequences are not realistic.
How do you feel about the profound effects of violent video games on adolescents' mental health?
I think that it provides like so much instant gratification and stimulation that they get addicted to it. I believe that video games truly can be addictive, and that the kids lose touch with reality and start to want to play video games and be in this kind of like alternative reality instead of living their life. And so I've seen kids not want to get jobs, not want to build relationships because they're so addicted to the games.
Right. Does it affect their social skills?
Yes, a lot. I mean, I think games where you can talk to other people are good, but you have to have face-to-face interaction, and you're not necessarily getting that in video games. So I've definitely noticed a downhill slide with kids and their social interaction because they're just not spending time talking to real people.
Right. Does it affect the functionality in their homes?
Yes. Yeah, so many kids have tantrums because they don't want to stop playing the video games, and it's because their brain is getting addicted to them. And their parents, don't really understand why. But yeah, definitely I believe that they're not spending time with their family, and they're not, just being a part of everyday functioning, like doing the chores and, going outside and playing. They're sitting inside and playing video games and then throwing tantrums when they have to get off.
Yes.
Definitely.
What changes do you feel need to be made in order to ensure the mental health of adolescents are no longer negatively affected?
I think just a time limit. I don't necessarily think that they're bad in and of themselves. Maybe like the more realistic ones like Grand Theft Auto or something like that is like, maybe we shouldn't teach the kids to do that. But like fantasy games, things like that, I don't think they're necessarily inherently bad. I think the amount of time people spend on them is the real issue, and that that long term causes the desensitization and the losing touch with reality and poor social skills. So I think setting a time limit on them and making them like less less violent, less realistic would be good.
Wasn't Rachel great? Getting a professional to talk to us about the effects of violence on the adolescents was really intriguing. Now let's go back into the studio for a quick analysis with Lily.
You're absolutely right. This is like truly astonishing. In a 2015 study conducted by the American Psychological Association, the findings showed that there was a direct correlation between violent video games and violent behavior displayed in adolescents. Much of the gaming community would feel otherwise. What better way of knowing than talking with the people of the community? Take it away, Alex.
Alright, so I'm just gonna ask you a few questions about video games if you don't mind. Alright, so the first question is, do you play any violent video games?
Yeah, no, I mean, occasionally I'll play a little bit of Destiny if that's what we call violent, but I don't really know.
And what makes that violent?
I mean, I guess it's a shooter game, so I mean, any shooter game is really considered violent in a sense, right?
Okay, and do you feel like those type of video games display more violent actions from you?
It depends. I mean, if I'm losing a lot, I guess you could say like I'll get more upset, but I don't think it really brings out more violence in me in my everyday life.
Do you know anyone else that plays video games in your life?
In my life, maybe my cousins, or yeah, that's about it. My cousins.
Do you see any like violent actions from them?
No, they seem pretty chill.
So you don't think that violent video games affect behaviors at all?
I think it just depends on the person, because I think it just depends on the person, because if you're naturally calm, I don't think it really affects you. I mean, if you take the game that seriously, then maybe, but I think it just depends on each person.
So what do you think the effects of video games can have on like young people, like teenagers, like your cousins and you?
I think if they get used to it and growing up, maybe it becomes more normal in their everyday life, if that makes sense. But other than that, it's more just time consuming.
So you don't think that it affects how people act at all? Like if they're playing it every single day, constantly just having like shooting people online, you don't think that'll affect how they think or how they act towards others?
I think it could have an effect. I think it really could. I mean, you do see like nowadays kids playing like recreating the video game like in person. So I mean, I think it does have some type of effect, but then again, it depends on who's playing it.
I'm Brian Siegel. I'm a professor of history here at University State College.
I'm just gonna ask you a few questions about video games, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. So do you think violent video games can affect behaviors in teenagers?
To me, I don't have experience with a lot of the video games. I grew up playing early games, Pong, Space Invaders, Pac-Man. That was that was big when I was a teenager. So they were just coming around then, but I've never really played shooter games or anything like that. I would imagine, this is my thoughts, that video games, it could influence some violent behavior, right? So if somebody experiences violence personally or in a video game, I think what you see a lot of times you can't unsee, or Buddhists have a sort of a philosophy that whatever you see, that kind of becomes a part of you, what you hear, because we're products of our time. And I teach history, so if you see things you understand, then you might absorb it a little bit.
Yeah, so you think of someone to say like they were playing shooting games every day or fighting games every day, it might affect how they act in their everyday behaviors? I
would think so, yeah. So you're not actually in the physical violence, but I think you're there and you're seeing it, and your brain, this is just me thinking, but your brain is probably absorbing it and thinking about it and putting yourself in that situation.
And what behaviors do you think it might affect? Or they might start demonstrating?
Okay. For me, I think a lot of the internet or the phones, I think we've kind of been desensitized a little bit. For example, years ago I was walking through the campus with like 4 other students, honor students, and I think everybody was on their phone, either texting or calling, and I thought, this is weird, like there's 5 of us walking in the same direction, and we're not having a conversation, no one is saying anything, and I just kind of let it hang and just experience the moment. But you know, it's like when you walk into a restaurant and you see 4 or 6 people there, and everybody's down like this. So I think with video games, it'd be something similar to maybe spending all the time like electronics or all online classes. People are just, it's you and the computer screen, right? So we're having a conversation here, making eye contact, you're asking questions, we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
But I think just like when people put comments on, you know, trolls or whatever, they're not looking somebody in the eye. They're just saying whatever's popping into their mind. So my thought on it would be like a desensitization. So it's kind of numbing yourself, or it's getting you used to violent thoughts or behavior, like to survive this battle or whatever, I've got to go around here. So it's getting you to putting you in that mode of thinking. Where typically before that, it would be more like military, or if there's just fights or whatever, you kind of get that mindset.
So you think it normalizes violent behaviors?
I would think so, yeah. And by normal, even though it is a video game, it's just a video game. When I read about like all the mass shooters, probably not all of them, but a large portion of them, they're used to playing violent video games. So how it might affect them or whatever, it's like their thought process going through that, and they're prepared for it, and it's getting them maybe amped up or pumped up that way.
Do you know of anyone that plays violent video games? Or like, do you think it affects how they act towards their parents?
It could, you know, I really don't know a lot of people that play violent video games. Yeah.
Do you think like if a teenager were to play that every day, it would affect how they treat their parents or like their siblings?
I would think so. In a way, it maybe takes a little bit of, if not humanity away, but it's maybe aggressive nature. So if you're used to, you know, it's like, okay, well, yeah, like I got to get back to the video game. It's not, you know, it's less of a conversation like we're having. It's just.
Thank you, Alex. That was a great perspective from our community. This wraps up our Pretty Girl News updates on how violence of video games affects children and young teens. I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for watching Pretty Girl News. Hope to see you soon.